Docking a boat can be one of the hardest things in boating, but with Yamaha's Helmmaster EX system, it makes you look like a pro, whether it's your first time or you've been around boats your whole life. Today, we're going to run you through all the different features and how to set them up. I'm Will Lee from Yamaha Motor Australia. I've spent countless hours on the water demonstrating the Yamaha Helmmaster EX system to new and seasoned boat owners. Helmmaster EX has a lot of features, and I'm going to show you a few of my favourites to make your day on the water enjoyable. What I'm going to show you first is our 6x9 Binnacle. It has some really cool features. We've just pulled out of the marina and we're in a go slow zone here. The speed limit on Sydney Harbour is 4 knots. So what we can do, this little button here, we press it in, speed control is now activated, and we can dial that up to 4 knots, knowing that we're not breaking the law. We've just got out of the go slow zone. So the next really cool feature I'm going to show you in the Binnacle control is single lever. What single lever does for you, it operates the engine simultaneously off one stick rather than both. It's really easy to use. Simply have the boat in neutral. It's a simple press of this button here. Starboard lever, we can then fold that back, it becomes redundant, and now we can operate the boat on one. This makes operating the boat really easy. One less thing to worry about when you're heading out to the fishing spot. Another feature that I really like is neutral hold. What it simply does is allows you to open the throttles on the engines without selecting a gear. Personally, I like this as a safety feature for when I've got family or friends aboard. If somebody was to walk past and bump the controls while you're up the bow doing something, the boat isn't going to go anywhere. The boat that we're demonstrating today is fitted with 3 engines. When we've got 3 engines, or 4, we've got the ability to isolate the center engine or the center engines. And that's really easy to do, simply hitting a button on our control. Where would you want to use that? Well, maybe if you're fishing offshore, trolling live baits, and you want a super slow troll, it gives you the ability to really dial it in. One of the features in Helmmaster EX, which I personally really love, is the track point feature in the Autopilot system. What track point does for you is gives you the ability to set a track in your MFD, and you can sit at the helm with Autopilot engaged and enjoy the ride. So to set it up, what we do is we select our final destination in the MFD screen, which in this case is the heads of Sydney Harbour. What we're going to do, we're going to select route 2. We've got a few turns on the way, so we're going to drag our little cursor. We're going to add a turn there. We'll select another one there. One final turn. Done. We've now set that up in our MFD to navigate to. All I'm going to do now is put the boat into gear. That's an important thing to remember when setting any of the Autopilot features. Once we're in gear, hold the button in, which is track point. Wait for a beep. There we go. We're now in Autopilot. While you're in track point, you have the ability to choose whatever speed you want to travel at. Remembering, we can also use speed control. One of the really cool things that track point offers is the ability for us to input into the system what we want the boat to do on arrival to the waypoint. In this case, I've told the system that I want it to decelerate before the waypoint, and when we do arrive to the waypoint, I want the boat to go into fish point. Fish point is a great feature for fishing, and we will talk more about that once we arrive. In our Autopilot system, we have a basic function which is heading hold. So to engage heading hold, what we want to do is we want to have the boat in forward, and what we do, we simply press heading hold, and what heading hold is going to do is keep the direction that the bow was pointing at the time that we engage the button. If we want to make fine-tune adjustments, we can also do that, and there's 2 ways that we can do that. We can use the Autopilot panel, or we can use the joystick. If we're using the Autopilot panel, where you've got the little arrows there that have a 1 degree and a 5 degree icon, a short press will change the heading by 1 degree, and if we hold that button in, it's going to change the heading by 5 degrees. We also have the option to stack those on top of each other. For example, if I press the button now and it beeps 4 times at me, it's going to change the heading by 20 degrees. We can do the identical thing with the joystick, and how we do that, we twist the joystick. A little short twist of the joystick is going to change our heading by 1 degree. A long twist of the joystick is going to stack those 5 degree changes on top of each other. Heading hold's a great one when you're in open water or you're trolling lures and you just want to make fine-tune adjustments. Remember, with heading hold, wind and tide to the side of the vessel won't stop you getting pushed to the side. If you want to do that, course hold is the option for you. With all of the Yamaha Autopilot features, once they're engaged, you'll notice that the wheel is locked. If we were going to collide with something or we needed to steer around it, we simply break the lock and we're back in control of the boat. The next feature in our autopilot system is course hold. So once again, we have the boat in forward, we hit the course hold button, we listen for that beep, and we are now in course hold. What course hold is great for doing is holding the line in which we originally set course hold on. What it will do if we have wind or current to the side of the vessel is make little compensations from our engine or engines at the back of the boat, making the steering hold that line. If we need to adjust our line while we're in course hold, we can do that in a similar fashion to which we did when we were in heading hold. That is with the autopilot panel, with the little arrows there, a short press, 1 degree, long press is 5 degrees, and we can stack those on top of each other, changing the direction that our boat is going to head in. With course hold, we also have the ability, if we were going to run into something or we had a channel marker in front of us, we can avoid that object by using the joystick, moving it to the side laterally. Every time we move it laterally to the side, we've predetermined a distance in the gauge setup, and we will actually do a bit of a diagonal and avoid that obstacle. Course hold is great, once again, if you're trolling, or where I really like it, if you're in open water and you've got a landmark and a clear run to it, you can basically line the boat up for that landmark, engage course hold, and know that you're going to arrive at your destination. Another great feature in Yamaha's autopilot system is pattern steer, and there's 4 ways that you can use that. There's zigzag, there's spiral, which both are great if you're looking for bait or you're searching for new ground. There's also a Williamson turn feature and also a pattern search feature. Let's have a little look in the gauge of how we set those up. So what we want to do in the gauge is swipe across until we see an option of boat settings. Under boat settings, you'll find an option which is autopilot setting, and then we select pattern set. What we want to do is then select spiral. We determine what we want the initial circle to be and then how big we want each one to be after that. The boat is now decelerated, and at this stage I've touched nothing on the helm. The gauge is telling me that deceleration has finished. To activate set point, shift all levers to neutral. Because we've input the gauge that we wanted fish point in doing that, we are now set in fish point and ready to drop a line. What does fish point do? Fish point essentially gives you the ability to hold a position. Now that is with either the bow or the stern into the prevailing conditions, whichever is strongest on the day. Now there's 2 ways that we can engage fish point, and as we've seen, we can do that with the track point feature, where the boat decelerates and then we pull the levers back to neutral to engage fish point on the mark. We've found some slimy mackerel on the screen here. We may want to drop down onto them. All I'm going to do now is hit fish point, and now fish point bow is activated. The reason I've selected fish point bow in this situation is we're faced with an offshore swell here today. What I want to avoid is a swell basically breaking over the back of the boat, so by holding the bow into the conditions, we feel nice and safe. Fish point stern is really handy in flat water, where you might have a situation where the anglers on your boat want to fish from the bow, opposed to fishing around the engines at the back of the boat. When we arrived to this spot, we managed to sound some bait. That bait has now disappeared off our screens. So what we can do is we can make some fine-tune adjustments without moving too far from our original position. To make that adjustment, we simply knock the joystick. Now we can knock it forward, backwards, or to the sides. Every time we do that and it beeps, it's going to move 3 meters or roughly 10 feet. And we can also change how big those increments are. For example, if I hit the joystick now forward 5 times, it's going to move the boat 15 meters or roughly 50 foot. Because fish point is for fishing, we have the ability to adjust our thrust levels, keeping the RPM and the engine noise to a minimum. To do so, we've got the plus and the minus button on the joystick. So to increase the thrust levels, we obviously use the plus sign. To decrease the thrust levels, we go down with the minus side. A Helmmaster feature that is really handy when you're waiting for something like a bridge to open up or to get onto a fuel dock is stay point. Let me show you how that works. To engage stay point, we hit the button, and what stay point allows us to do is hold not only position, but our heading. And to do so, the engine is going to use more RPM than what it would typically use in the fish point features. This is a really handy feature where you might be fighting a fair bit of wind or a fair bit of current, and you need to just stay in a stationary position while you get yourself a little bit organised. What drift point gives us the ability to do is to hold our heading and use the natural conditions on the day, whether that's the wind or the current or a combination of both. So what I do is I get the boat on a 90-degree angle to our prevailing conditions. In this scenario, it's the current that we're going to use. Put the boat into neutral, activate drift point, And now that I've activated drift point, it's going to keep that heading that the boat was in when I actually hit the button. If we want to adjust our heading that we've initially set with the press of the button, we can do that simply by twisting the joystick. Every time we twist the joystick and we hear that beep, we're changing our heading by 5 degrees. I've just heard 4 beeps there, so the heading will now come around to our port side by 20 degrees. Well, the day has nearly come to an end, but we've got one thing to do, and that is dock the boat. And for a lot of people, that can be one of the most daunting things in boating. With Yamaha's Helm EX system and the joystick control, docking is a lot easier than what it was traditionally with the wheel and the sticks. So the first thing that you want to do is obviously pull the levers back to neutral. Now that we're in neutral, we have the ability to engage the joystick, and to do so, we just press the joystick button. First thing I'm going to do now is just get a feel for the joystick, and if it's got the correct thrust levels that I'm going to want with the current and the wind that we have here today. If we need more thrust, we can give it more thrust simply by pressing the plus button. If it's a little bit too quick for our liking, we can also dial it back. Personally, I don't like it too quick. I think slow and steady always wins the race. The joystick works in multiple ways. So to go forward, we simply push the joystick forward and that will take our boat forward. To go backwards, it's the opposite. Simply pull the joystick back and you're in reverse. Every time you let go of the joystick, your rudder angles on your engines return to 0 degrees and you're now in neutral. To move the boat sideways, we move the joystick to the side, like so. And if we want to change our heading or turn the boat around, we can twist the joystick. Let's have our first attempt. So right now I've got the boat in reverse and I'm going to twist the joystick to bring the bow around that way. So I've got the boat where I want it, where I feel comfortable. We're now inside this berth. All I need to do now is move the boat to the side. So to do so, I'm going to move the joystick to the side. And to counteract the wind and the tide, I'm just going to twist it slightly if my line ends up not parallel. And as easy as that, we are back in the marina, safely on the dock. Helm EX is more than just engine technology. It really does transform your boating experience. Just ask any boat owner with Helm EX installed and they will tell you that they can't imagine life without it. So make sure you consider Helm EX in your new Grady-White.